Bighara here. I'm trying something with my iPad here on a quick break from work, and I thought I'd try posting a quick video blog because I've had a couple people comment that I hadn't done anything in a few months. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about what's going on in my gaming right now. Right now I'm running Nightstar Terror, one of my favorite modules, and I've been running it now for a couple months. And one of the unusual things for me is that I'm running it for a very large group for me. Right now I have about 7 or 8 players plus myself, so a very crowded table. And I thought I'd talk a little bit about things I've noticed while running for a large group, because I don't normally run that big a group. A couple tips, I guess you could say, that I've found help me in the process. The first one is in scheduling, because when you're dealing with adults, people who aren't in school or anything like that, scheduling gets really tricky. So I found the best thing to do is you set a date, and there can be some flexibility, but you pick the day that you're meeting that week or whatever, and you're going to stick to it, especially if you're hosting, if it's going to be at your place, because, if you can't do it on a given day, you can't do it. So it's kind of your call. You want to be flexible. If someone says, hey, can we do it Tuesday? And you go, yeah, sure, and we'll give it a try. But the idea is there is a date out there, and who can make it, and who can't, can't. Everybody is going to be busy. If you're trying to do it on a holiday or something, that's one thing. But otherwise, if a player has to miss it, then either you just hand wave the fact their character's not there, or they have to agree among the players that someone else is running that character. I don't recommend that you run the character for the player, because nothing's worse than the GM have it, and then something happens to that player, and then they're pissed at you. Make it the other guy's fault. The other thing I've noticed is that the pace in terms of the events tends to be a little bit slower, because there's often a lot of in-game discussion. I haven't had a lot of trouble with out-of-game chatter, a little, but mostly it's talking about what to do in the game. There's a lot of debate about, do this, or should we go this way, should we go that way, et cetera, which I think is fine. As long as it's about the game and what's happening in the game, I'm cool with that up to a point. You don't want it to derail the action, so maybe you need to kind of nudge them once in a while, but you may find that you don't get through as much of the dungeon or whatever you're doing in a given session. The other thing is you want to make sure that you keep an eye on every PC and offer at least opportunities for them to do something, to have a little spotlight. Maybe there's the fighters get a chance for combat, the wizards have a chance to use their cool spells, etc., etc. Any non-humans, the fact that they have infravision or something makes them useful. They can sneak up in the dark, whatever. The other thing I found is I like to make it a little more fast and easy, because you don't want to sit there and get bogged down in a lot of ruling. So when something weird comes up, and I'm like, well, yeah, maybe, give them a chance, sure. Sometimes what I like to do is say, okay, you roll the die. If you get a 6, great, then you have a chance. If not, oh well. And then it gives the player a feeling, hey, I've got some control. He's not just making some secret decision behind the screen, and I don't know what's going on. You have to be willing to live with that decision, but that role or whatever, but it can be fun. And that applies to any size group, but I find it's a good way to also keep everybody involved and keep things moving. Also, the other thing I like to do is I like to roll openly for this. I like them rolling initiative. I'll put out, hey, they got a 4, you on a D6 or a D20. They know what the deal is, and it keeps everybody more engaged. At least that's what I've kind of found. I've been using Obsidian Portal, which is a website that lets you use wikis and calendars and forums and stuff like that. It's really nice. I recommend it. I'll put a link down there. But something like that, whether it's Google Calendar or something, the online way to not only keep track of what's going on in the campaign, but just scheduling, like I said before, very, very handy. Hey, I don't know if you noticed the change in background, but I actually had to vacate the conference room I was using and find a different place to finish up. So don't sweat a lot of backstory, a lot of putting in a lot of intrigue or anything like that, because the fact is, with that many player characters interacting with each other, if you've got any kind of momentum in just the bare bones of the adventure, they're going to generate some of that on their own. And even if they don't, with just that many players, you've got enough to do without keeping track of all kinds of extra stuff. If somebody gets into it and wants to throw some wrinkle in there, I would discourage it, but I wouldn't waste a lot of effort on prepping it, which kind of brings me to my next point, which is because I'm running B10, which is actually more of a mini campaign than it is just a module. It spans an awful lot. It makes it a little easier because there's always something in the queue. There's another segment of the adventure waiting, so I don't have to sit there and keep thinking things up. If they do go off script from it, though, it doesn't really bother me because it's in the Karamikos setting, which I'm very familiar with and I like a lot. So I have a sense of sandbox there where I can say, okay, well, if they're going to go off script, I'll just kind of go with it. And I can kind of keep in mind the events within the module that are going to be going on, whether they're pursuing them or not. And then lets that kind of go on behind the scenes, and maybe something will happen down the road that'll nudge them back on track. But that's part of the fun of gaming, is not knowing exactly what's going to happen. You don't want to railroad them. You're not writing a story. You want to create a story as you go. But anyway, those are the basic tips that I had, that I thought, and observations that I want to share about what I find interesting and different about running for a large group. Not all of them apply exclusively to large groups, but it's under those circumstances, which I say are a little different than how I normally run. I usually run for like 3 or 4 players. It's made me notice it. So, make of that what you will. But that's all for now. Take it easy.